Reflecting on the years, I find solace in memories of Jake's childhood, a tapestry of love woven with sacrifice and pride. The scent of freshly baked cookies fills my kitchen as I recall our Saturday baking marathons. I'd pull him onto the counter, flour dusting our hands, and laughter mixing with the sweet aroma. We were a team, united by recipes that became traditions. Holidays spent in our cozy home where I taught him how to create magic with simple ingredients. Every school play, every scraped knee, I was there. I remember the feeling of joy when he'd run to me, arms wide after a soccer game, the mud on his shirt a badge of honor. "Mom, did you see me?" he would shout, his eyes sparkling with youthful pride. I felt like I was glowing as I held him close, knowing I was his biggest supporter, the anchor in his life's tempestuous seas. I sacrificed my own dreams to nurture his. Late nights were spent helping with homework, everything from algebra equations to science projects. Each page he completed was a testament to my unwavering support, a culmination of love for the child I devoted my life to. But, like a slow-moving storm, I began to notice the changes. I remember the day Jake announced he was dating Sophie. It was bittersweet. I felt the tremors of loss even then. Yet, I welcomed her with open arms, eager to embrace the woman who had captured my son's heart. I wanted to believe in her charm and the delightful way she smiled. But underneath her polished exterior, something was amiss. Subtle, rapid changes as if a shadow had crept into the very light of our family. At first, it was the little things, snide comments disguised as playful banter. "Oh, Margaret, you're still on that old recipe? You really should try something new." The laughter that followed felt more like mockery. I shook it off, hoping it was nerves. I told myself that she would learn to appreciate my role, the love I poured into my family. But then came the holidays, when Sophie began dictating how the family traditions should change. One Thanksgiving, I recall her controlling the menu, my heart sinking as she insisted on a new dish I had never made. "Your mother's stuffing is lovely, but you should really try this gourmet version," she chirped with an insincere sweetness. Hidden beneath her surface was a concerted effort to chip away at my identity, and I watched with despair as Jake quietly accepted her commands, often turning a blind eye to Sophie's dismissive tone. The slow unraveling of what we had built together began to gnaw at my heart. I often found myself lingering in the kitchen, straightening placemats, adjusting the flowers in a vase, trying to reconnect with the spirit of the dinners that once warmed our home. In the echo of the clinking plates and distant laughter, the air thickened with the ache of isolation. I cherished the time spent with Jake, but his laughter now had a different flavor, a sweetness that lingered briefly before sharp undertones flickered beneath. I sensed it in the way Sophie manipulated conversations, drawing Jake further from me with every passing day like a vine choking a once vibrant flower. Each dismissive glance, every undermining comment stung deeply, and I felt my place, once solid and cherished, twisting into a tangle of doubt and despair. "He is my son," I remind myself, hoping my love can bridge this growing chasm. But as I stand amidst the memories of laughter and warmth, I feel the crushing silence surrounding us, a reminder that the bond we once shared is slipping away, slowly eroding under the careful manipulations of a woman who had engulfed my son in her web. The realization settles heavily. I am left in the shadows, yearning for the recognition of my sacrifices, a prayer that love can still heal what is splintering between us. In a way, wedding planning is a whirlwind, a fleeting blur punctuated by bright smiles and soft music. The day Sophie walked down the aisle, I was filled with joy, yet a whisper of unease twisted in my stomach. I remember the gleam in Jake's eyes, how proud he looked watching her walk towards him. I clutched my bouquet, my heart swelling with maternal pride, yet heavy with an instinctive fear. Would this union shatter the delicate balance that had formed our small family? The months following the wedding were vibrant, yet something felt quietly amiss. In the chaos of holiday dinners, Sophie dazzled, her smile lighting up the room like candlelight on a warm summer evening. Her laughter, sweet as syrup, masked a more bitter edge beneath. Slowly, like creeping ivy, I sensed her disapproval seeping into every interaction we shared. One evening, while I prepared dinner, she nestled into the corner of the kitchen, the sharp sound of her phone cutting into our conversations. "You should really put that cookbook away, Margaret. You know, some people are just naturally talented in the kitchen," she quipped, her voice laced with condescension. A chill settled in the air, and I forced a laugh while my heart sank. It was during these exchanges that her true nature began to show, the careful manipulation hidden behind cozy smiles, and Jake, enamored and blind, offered no defense, merely smiling at Sophie like a puppet on strings. I could almost hear my heart shatter with each dismissive word, each heavy silence that followed. The vibrant woman I had welcomed into our family slowly transformed into a veiled threat, her charm a mask for vicious barbs cloaked in friendliness. I remember one particular evening. The air was fragrant with the scent of rosemary and seared chicken. We gathered for Sunday dinner, a tradition I held dear. As I plated the food, Sophie leaned into Jake, her voice low in an exaggerated whisper. "You've got to have your mother serve the vegetarian options as well." Laughter bubbled from the children, and Jake chuckled, not realizing the discomfort radiating from me. "Of course, just in case someone is watching their figure," I replied, keeping my tone light even as I felt the sting of humiliation creeping up my neck. I turned away, busying myself with forks and glasses, my heart aching at the shadows cast across the table. Every gathering served as a reminder of the wide chasm growing between us, with Sophie confidently stepping into roles that should be mine. Their subtle shifts of power hurt in ways that transcended words. I often found myself wandering the quiet corners of my home, tracing the lineage of our family through fading photographs, Jake's first day at school, his college graduation, and all the birthdays in between. I am aching for something to change. My heart ached for the laughter and lightness Noah once brought into our lives, now overshadowed. Her comments escalated as weeks turned to months. At Jake's birthday party, an event I had meticulously planned, laden with his favorite foods and decorations, I felt like a ghost in my own home. I watched as Sophie seamlessly commandeered the festivities. Her laughter echoed, overpowering the rousing memories of joyful moments I had fought to preserve. "Come on, everyone, let's have a toast to my incredible husband. No one makes better meatballs than I do," she announced, raising her glass. The room erupted in cheer, but my heart shriveled at the loss of what I once held dear. Even my grandchildren sensed the tension, their playful innocence transforming into caution. Ellie and Max loved me fiercely, but they hesitated to choose sides. I would catch them sending nervous glances at Sophie, torn between her reprimands and my quiet dignity, a tug-of-war unfolding beneath the surface. Judging by their fidgeting, they too could sense the thickening atmosphere, a storm brewing just out of sight. The irony pinched sharply. She was the one who supposedly brought happiness into our lives, yet I couldn't shake the feeling of being trapped, my voice stifled beneath layers of Sophie's accolades and Jake's ignorant acceptance. I fought to remain composed at family gatherings, secretly piecing together the remains of my identity, anything to silence the gnawing voice within that questioned my worth as a mother. Crouched beneath laughter, I felt invisible, drowning in the very air I breathed. It wasn't only the words that sank deeply. Sophie's passive-aggressive jabs manifested in glances and dismissals. I can still picture moments frozen in time, her biting smile when she spoke over me, dismissing my opinion, which left a knot of humiliation tangled in my throat. "I know you all love my mom's cooking," Jake chimed in during one dinner, his effort to ease the tension only bending under his obliviousness. Through forced smiles and tight-lipped conversations, I could feel the walls closing in. With each family dinner, that snaking anxiety grew, coiling tighter around my heart. The once comforting embrace of family felt like a prison, and I longed to break free, desperately wanting to reclaim the warmth that had slipped from my grasp. My love for Jake remained steadfast, but the tumultuous pulsing of doubt and division gnawed at my resolve. As Sophie danced through our lives, I felt the delicate threads of our family's fabric unraveling, leaving me to face a haunting truth that her presence might irrevocably alter my bond with my beloved son. Each family gathering felt like stepping into a film I no longer recognized, a stage where I played a supporting role, overshadowed by Sophie's dominating presence. With every encounter, I sensed the invisible lines she drew to distance me from Jake and the children. Conversations that once flowed like music now twisted into sharp notes, uneasy and discordant. I remember vividly one Sunday afternoon, sunlight streaming through windows, bathing our home in warmth. I stood in the kitchen, savoring the sense of baked ziti bubbling in the oven. It was a comfort amidst the brewing storm. As I arranged the table, I saw Sophie perched on the couch, fingers flying across her phone, oblivious to the atmosphere around her. The children bounded into the room, squeals of laughter echoing as they joyfully tossed a ball between them. "Grandma, can you come play?" Ellie called out, her eyes sparkling. My heart swelled, joyful, yes, but tinged with anxiety. Before I could respond, Sophie piped up, "Oh, sweetie, I bought them a new game on my tablet. Let's show Grandma later, okay?" Their excitement dimmed slightly as they hesitated, glancing toward me, caught between our two worlds. I stood frozen, the weight of her words suffocating. My hands trembled slightly as I gripped the tablecloth, fighting the urge to express my discontent. "They can mute me at the table, never in my heart," I reminded myself, clinging to that mantra quietly as I served dinner. Subtle jabs continued throughout the meal. When Jake humorously recounted a story from work, Sophie interrupted, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Can we save the embarrassing family stories for another time? It's getting late, and we all know how fondly my mother-in-law recalls tales from the good old days." Laughter erupted, but it pierced through me like arrows, and I felt my heart constrict. Jake continued, oblivious, his laughter mingling with that of our guests. The comforting ambience vanished. I felt invisible, a ghost in what was once my sanctuary. The children began to mirror Sophie's insensitivity, often stealing concerned glances at her before engaging with me. I watched Ellie imitate Sophie's dismissive gestures, her small hand flapping in an exaggerated manner, as if to make a joke out of my fading existence. A gasp would escape me. I bit my tongue to suppress the hurt clawing at me. This transformation cut deeply. My hope for a future connection began to fade, replaced by an insidious self-doubt. With every humiliating jab Sophie unleashed, I could feel my dignity eroding. Each meal consumed turned into a reminder of my fraying existence, a silent scream echoing within a home once filled with laughter. I took refuge in memories, sometimes seeking comfort in quiet evenings spent sewing quilts in solitude. Each stitch reminded me of my love and the patchwork of sacrifices I had sown through the years, years devoted to nurturing Jake, years filled with warmth, now turned frigid. The act of creation anchored me amid chaos, a reminder of my strength. Yet each time I withdrew, the isolation grew heavier, draping itself around my heart like a suffocating blanket. I became desperate for connection, this shadow of my former self seeking validation in quieter circles. Friends and family who understood the complexity of my pain, whispering encouragement. "Just keep being you, Margaret," they'd assure me. Their support was a balm, though I felt a world apart, a family fracturing under the strain of a new reality. Every time I padded through my home, I could sense Sophie's influence wrapping around my son like a noose. The tension was festering, a storm brewing beneath the surface. I watched helplessly as each encounter chipped away at the foundation I fought to maintain. But then, while piecing those quilts together, a metaphor for my life, I also caught glimpses of my strength rising. I realized it was time to step out of the shadows. No longer could I be silent in the face of humiliation or passively accept becoming a character in someone else's narrative. The embers of my dignity began to spark anew, whispering that I had the power to reclaim my voice. And so, each night as I gazed at the fabrics I painstakingly connected, I felt a thread of defiance weaving through me, a resolve to confront the unsettling reality of Sophie's presence. I summoned the courage to prepare for the day I'd face my truth, knowing the confrontation would require both pain and clarity. I deserved to be part of my family, not subordinated to a role determined by someone else's whims. In the dim light of my cozy home, I sat at my sewing table, the rhythmic motion of my hands comforting me, nudging me towards a path of reclamation, a journey nestled amid fabric and warmth, ready to confront the storm brewing outside. The days drifted slowly, yet each had the weight of the world, deepened by the oppressive air of Sophie's presence. As I pieced together my quilts, I felt a fire igniting within me, a need to dig deeper, to gather insights into the subtle manipulations that threatened to fracture our family. I couldn't merely react, I needed a strategy. Every encounter was a chance to observe, to understand the patterns she wove and the undercurrents that flowed beneath the surface. I began with the little moments, the mundane exchanges that often went overlooked. I paid close attention to Sophie's interactions with Jake, how her laugh would ring out a fraction louder whenever she dismissed my input. I recalled a Sunday gathering during the long, languid light of early evening when we sat around the table, the remnants of dinner lingering in the air. I had made his favorite roast, the flavors melding into a familiar comfort. As I served the meal, I watched Sophie's eyes flicker, scanning the plates filled with food I had prepared. She feigned enthusiasm, leaning into Jake, commenting on the offness of the meal in a drunken lilt. "This is great, but can we skip the old-fashioned stuff next time? We want to save our taste buds for real culinary experiences." The laughter was light, almost festive, yet it sliced through me sharply. Jake joined in, chuckling, his appreciation for my cooking overshadowed by her insistence on culinary improvements. The air felt thick, and I silently resolved to capture these moments, to catalog the subtle jabs and passive aggression that eroded my position as both mother and matriarch. Over the next few weeks, I transformed into a quiet observer, a silent witness to the emotional manipulations that coursed through our gatherings. Sophie often swept through the room, commanding attention. Whenever she spoke, her words dripped with charm, charming the family while aiming barbs at my pride. "Oh, I'll handle the desserts this time. You know how much I love creating Pinterest-worthy treats," she'd declare. A smile stretched across her face, while in truth, she rendered my contributions irrelevant. Gathering these interactions felt like stacking bricks against a mighty wall. I aimed to understand the bricks used to build this illusion she was creating. After weeks of quiet reflection, I started jotting down my experiences in a small notebook, careful to record her dismissive comments and the way Jake shrugged off any hint of my discomfort. This meticulous documentation transformed from mere observations into a diary of my emotional landscape. Each entry was a step toward reclaiming my narrative, a reminder that I wasn't invisible or unheard, even when those I loved drew a line between us. I began weaving insights from the notebook into conversations with friends, mentioning Sophie's comments casually, couching my pain in laughter. "You won't believe what Sophie said about my mashed potatoes last dinner," I'd say, smiling even while the knots in my stomach twisted tighter. Each time their expressions shifted from amusement to concern, and I caught glimmers of validation in their eyes. The final piece of my investigation came from an unexpected source: Jake's phone. I noticed it left abandoned on the kitchen counter one afternoon, the screen lighting up, revealing an open chat between Sophie and a friend. Curiosity tugged at me, and for a brief second, I wrestled with the ethics of my next move. But the culmination of instances, those hidden comments and the private laughter I'd endured for too long, pushed me forward. Peering at the screen, I realized I wasn't merely uncovering a veil of lies. I was witnessing a calculated orchestration of discrediting my relationship as Jake's mother. There, in front of me, were messages filled with mockery. Sophie casually dismissing me as too old-fashioned to realize how to have fun, and sweet but incapable of keeping up with their flourishing lives. My heart raced. A turmoil of anger and betrayal surged through me. Each word felt like a dagger aimed directly at my heart, confirming all my fears. I quickly averted my gaze, realizing I had invaded a moment of intimacy I shouldn't have, yet the knowledge lodged firmly in my mind. Armed with this revelation, I decided I could now confront both Sophie and Jake with clarity. The emails and notes transformed into a force. I was no longer the passive observer, the matriarch trapped beneath a veneer of happiness. I was a force of my own, ready to reclaim what I had feared I would lose: the love of my son. It was during one tense week of family dinners that I decided to stage my confrontation. Sophie arrived early that Saturday, determined to contribute her own elaborate lineup of dishes. Her overt enthusiasm showcased her determination to shine a spotlight on her culinary prowess while casting shadows on my decades of care. The ambiance felt electric. I could sense the impending collision of our worlds unfolding. She prattled on about her newest recipe, as everyone around the table nodded in practiced appreciation. "You have to understand, Margaret, there's absolutely no point in hoarding tradition when you can modernize everything," she declared, laughing lightly, her eyes catching my own in a mocking challenge. But I was no longer a hesitant participant. My heart pounded in unison with the suffocating silence that followed her comment. The air felt suffused with expectation, and I wanted nothing more than to shout, to let loose the thunder of years of suppressed emotion. Instead, I opened my notebook, letting the pages breathe softly in the hushed air of the room. Sophie's eyes narrowed as I began reading aloud some of the dismissive comments I had chronicled. The room felt thick with tension as I wove together the threads of her jabs, tracing the clear journey of her manipulation, each statement a carefully placed brick building, a wall between me and my son. The last words hung in the air, a sharp hiss of confrontation woven into the fabric of our family dinner. "Is this the kind of environment we want for our children?" I asked, looking at our family gathered around the table. Because it seems to me that we are letting the joy of our family dissolve into something harsh and bitter. I won't allow it. In that moment, I felt the surge of determination crystallize within me, my voice trembling yet firm. The silence that greeted my declaration felt monumental, a careful pause hanging like a fragile thread. The confrontation had been set. Now the outcome rested in the unsteady balance of honesty and the impending storm lurking behind the smiles we displayed. The tension crackled through the air, suffocating, as I braced for the storm that was about to unfold. Jake stared at me, caught between confusion and curiosity, while Sophie's smile faded, replaced by a thin veneer of composure. "What on earth are you talking about, Margaret?" she snapped, her voice laced with a forced cheerfulness. "This is about making memories, elevating our meals. You sound so defensive." "Defensive," the word echoed, stinging as it grazed my skin. I fought against the impulse to retract into my shell. This was my moment. I would not sink back into silence. "Is that truly what you believe?" I asked, my voice steadier than my trembling heart. "Because it seems to me that you're tearing apart the fabric of our family with every dismissive comment you make. You keep redefining what family means." Sophie's eyes narrowed, and she clenched her wine glass. "You're overreacting. It's all playful fun. I thought you'd be grateful for the new life I'm bringing into this household." Her laughter lacked the warmth that once filled our home. "Playful fun?" I repeated, incredulity rising. "You constantly undermine me, pushing me aside. What message are we sending to the children? Are we teaching them that manipulation is acceptable?" A flicker of uncertainty crossed her features, but she quickly regained her equilibrium. "Margaret, it's just a part of adapting. Times change, and you need to embrace some flexibility." "No," I insisted, grounding myself against the weight of her words. "I will not let my dignity be compromised in the name of your modernization." I glanced at Ellie and Max, their youthful faces reflecting uncertainty, caught between the tense exchange. This kitchen, this table, this is where laughter and love thrive. It shouldn't be a stage for your performance. Don't you see how you're putting them in the middle? A break in Sophie's facade appeared, her face betraying fear for the first time. "You really think it's that serious?" she retorted, but the edge in her voice told me otherwise. "Yes, all of this is ruining what family should feel like. I am not your competitor. I am their mother." My voice rose with fervor, fueled by years of hurt and a long-held silence. Jake finally interjected. "Mom, wait, maybe we should just sit down and talk this through," he suggested, his brow furrowed in concern. The flicker of advocacy filled me with hope. Before I could reply, Sophie cut in, hastily shifting the narrative. "It's typical, isn't it? Always causing a scene over something so trivial." She aimed her comment sharply at me, a familiar sting of mockery surfacing. "I'm just trying to make everyone happy. Can't we keep things light?" I took a breath, forcing composure amid the tension. "If keeping it light means that you dismiss my role, then we aren't being fair to each other, Sophie. This is still our family, and every harsh word you've used to belittle me chips away at that unity. You wouldn't want that for the children, would you?" The palpable air hummed with unspoken truths, and I pursued my point further. "Do you realize how difficult it becomes for them to feel secure when two people they love cannot share the same values and respect?" Max at last piped up, his earnest voice cutting through the mounting tension. "I just want us to be happy together like we used to be." His eyes darted between Sophie and me, innocent, confused, yet fiercely proud, drawing from the love he knew. As Sophie glanced at him, her defenses wavered. Maybe she finally understood the implications of her manipulation. My heart raced as I seized her moment of vulnerability. Every joke and jab adds to the pain. It's not just about the meals or the traditions, it's about how they feel about us and their own selves. Our children should feel loved and cherished. But instead of softening, Sophie straightened, her composure solidifying. How can you claim to know what's best for them when you insist on clinging to every outdated idea? As her barbed words hung in the air, I felt the swell of old wounds and the agony of stark realizations crashing upon my heart. While traditions evolve, we must still honor what brought us together. For me, that's the essence of family. Do you understand what I'm saying? With each conversation, every moment I catalogued, the walls of composure crumbled. I retraced the painful pattern she had built, her cruel remarks peppered through the years, constructing an emotional blockade that shielded her from real connection. I couldn't bring it to light alone. It required all of us to bear witness. During the ensuing silence, I replayed the notes I had jotted down, each dismissive joke, each laugh that felt forced. Finally, I let them spill out, tying them to the conversations I'd heard. Sophie, these moments reflect the nagging need for validation in your world, yet this constant push for control pushes me further away. Can you hear me? The air thickened again, but this time Jake stepped forward, his brow furrowing in thought. Mom, can we talk about this more later? Let's not escalate it right now. I nodded, feeling relief course through me. We might be trapped in the eye of the storm, but conversation brimming with clarity seemed possible. Perhaps now I could clear the air, strengthen our fractured bond, and challenge Sophie in ways that no longer masked my struggles. As I glanced around the table once more, the children's expressions were a mosaic of pride and confusion, and I felt a fire stir again within me. I couldn't let it die. I wasn't done pushing for our family's truth, and something surged in my heart as I looked at Sophie. Beneath that polished veneer lay palpable cracks ready to be exposed. I had entered this battle seeking to reclaim my place, but as I rose to speak once more, I saw an opportunity. We should honor each other's voices. Our family is only strong when we fight for every heart at this table. The fierce dialogue was pulsing, a beat of transformation waiting to find its rhythm. As the weight of my words settled in the air, I felt a shift. Jake glanced between me and Sophie, a bridge emerging from the confusion of our past. Maybe we should step outside for a moment, Mom, he suggested, gesturing toward the door leading to the patio. The urge to retreat was strong, but I fought it. This was my moment, one I had been preparing for far too long. Outside, the world felt expansive, a stark contrast to the tense confines of our dining room. I inhaled deeply, sampling the fresh breeze that kissed my skin. Jake, please hear me, I said, focusing on my son's anxious expression. This isn't just about our family meals. It's about making space for both of our voices. We can honor both our past and your future with Sophie. He looked thoughtful. It's just complicated, Mom. I love you both, but sometimes it feels like I'm stuck in the middle. Jake, this responsibility can't be yours alone, I insisted, emphasizing every word. We need to confront this to open the channels for conversation. So, what's the plan? His skepticism was palpable, but I could see a flicker of hope. I'm thinking we should have a family gathering, a picnic at the park, a neutral space, somewhere we can all share what we love about each other and our concerns without tension, you know? He nodded slowly. And if Sophie doesn't want to, we'll create that space anyway. I've grown the confidence to stand our ground. She needs to realize that we will not remain quiet and that we will work towards rebuilding what we had. With the days leading to the picnic embedded in my mind like a well-crafted plan, I took heart that clarity would help us defeat the weeds of manipulation that had taken root. Each memory I documented, the cruel remarks, the subtle dismissals, added weight to our cause, creating an emotional arsenal for the gathering ahead. The day of the picnic arrived, bright and sunny. I awoke early, purpose coursing through my veins. This was my chance, as I packed sandwiches, colorful fruits, and my signature brownies, the very dishes that echoed laughter from the past. Each item felt like a thread stitching us back together. As I drove to the park, excitement thrummed in my chest, though anxiety twisted in my stomach. Arriving at the familiar grounds, I found a quiet corner shaded by large sycamore trees. The air buzzed with anticipation. This would be our reset, our chance to rebuild what we had lost. When Sophie and Jake arrived, I sensed the tension in the air. Sophie's smile was tight, but her gaze darted around the scene, taking in every detail. "This is beautiful, Margaret," she remarked, her tone carefully balanced between admiration and an undertone of skepticism. "Just wanted to create a space for us to reconnect," I replied, keeping my demeanor steady. The picnic felt like an oasis amidst the chaos, yet I knew our challenges loomed. Once our food spread over checked blankets like a cheerful pallet, I suggested we share stories about what we loved about one another. We would put our past grievances aside, if only for a moment. I began, and with each memory shared, I felt the warmth of connection flow back into our fragile circle. "Jake, from your first steps to the way you light up a room with laughter, you've filled my life with immeasurable joy." A smile unfurled across his face as he digested my words. Sophie hesitated, but then stepped forward, determination lining her voice. "I admire your strength in raising such a wonderful son, Margaret. It reminds me how we all have difficult paths to tread." Surprised warmth curled in my chest at her acknowledgement, but I knew moments like this could be fleeting, shadows lurking in the corners. Turning the conversation was essential. "Thank you, Sophie. Just as we celebrate the good, I think it's crucial we voice our grievances too. They've been obscuring the joy we could cultivate together." Her expression tightened, clearly not thrilled about diving deeper. "Do we have to rehash everything right now?" "Yes," I maintained, my conviction rising. "Our children deserve to see us embrace honesty and work through our differences." Jake glanced between us, uncertainty spreading across his young face. "I felt caught in the middle for too long," he said candidly. The vulnerability in his voice hung in the air, a plea for unity that we couldn't ignore. I took a breath, realizing that this was our critical moment, an opportunity to foster healing. Family means battling through discomfort with the tools we've collected. Our children deserve to witness that, Sophie, I urged, my heart pounding. "Let's confront what's come between us." As we gathered around, I unleashed what flooded my mind. A trove of experiences. Each recollection I recounted revealed the moments where Sophie's cutting remarks had chipped away my self-worth. I diligently recalled the scenes of laughter turned to tension, of warmth morphing into competition. Jake joined in, echoing his attempts to bridge our divide. "I'm always worried that I'll disappoint either of you, and it's exhausting." Sophie shifted, and I caught her gaze falter for a moment. "You're right, Jake. We've made this harder than it should be." The sun painted the sky in warm hues, and I saw an opportunity emerge for us to reshape our narrative. I leaned into that promise of healing, urging us toward transformation fueled by authenticity. As the conversations unfolded, and we rallied around our shared experiences, I felt a new kind of hope arise. The remnants of our discord began to weave into a tapestry rich with understanding, uniting us in our pursuit for clarity. Underneath the open sky, sharing meals once filled with resentment began feeling lighter, draped in the softness of shared acknowledgement. It was time to forge new traditions, embracing the past while stepping forward. "Together, we can be our own strength," I finally said, feeling resolve swell within me once more. Our family can encompass love, truth, and respect for the past and present. As the laughter began to swell again, I recognized that our metamorphosis had begun, not just a picnic, but a deliberate lay of foundations for the family we could become. The laughter that had once echoed through our family now mingled with the warmth of the sun, filling our makeshift sanctuary with life. But just as I felt the newfound bond strengthening, an unease skittered across my heart. I knew the battle was far from over. There was a lingering tension that hadn't fully unraveled. As we enjoyed our picnic, I noticed the shadows lengthening, a metaphor for the doubts gnawing at me. I had laid the initial groundwork, sharing experiences that had hurt me, but I sensed Sophie's defenses still lurked just beneath the surface. I steeled myself for the next step, knowing it would require careful navigation. Amid crumpled napkins and empty plates, I met Sophie's gaze. I couldn't let this beautiful moment slip through our fingers without addressing the core of the fear that she had woven into our family. "Sophie," I began, the words weighing heavy on my tongue, "we can't just leave things unsaid. We deserve a clean slate, and part of that means voicing everything that has held us back. What I've felt has been a result of your remarks, the way they've cut and bruised." Her face tightened, defenses reflexively rising, but there, behind her stern expression, I glimpsed the flicker of awareness, perhaps even regret. Her lips parted, and I knew this was my moment. "I recognize that humor can sometimes bridge gaps, but many of your jests have not felt that way to me. They cross boundaries and belittle the love I've devoted to this family." Jake took a breath, eyes darting between us as tension wove tighter around us, the air thickening again. "Mom, I think it's okay to admit when something hurts. This isn't meant to push us apart, but to bring clarity." Sophie's silence filled the space louder than any words could. With each passing moment, my resolve strengthened. Empathy cannot flourish in a garden of dismissal, Sophie. I want us all to feel secure in voicing our thoughts. Do you believe that's possible? "Margaret, I never intended to hurt you," she finally said, her voice strained but sincere, as if battling the walls she had encased herself with for so long. "I thought I was helping to modernize traditions." "I get that," I replied, meeting her gaze. "But we cannot simply override the emotional scars in pursuit of the new. Tradition holds the foundations of our family. We can modernize, but that should complement rather than replace who we are," Jake interjected, pushed by the passion blossoming between us. "We've created a rift, and it's time we close it. There's too much love at stake for us to keep pretending everything is fine when it isn't." I marveled at the courage Jake exhibited. Pride swelled within me. The three of us tangled in vulnerability, standing on the precipice of connection. "To preserve our family," I urged, maintaining eye contact with Sophie, "we need to commit to honesty, to being honest about our concerns and our past." The sunlight danced around us, framing the delicate tension as Sophie seemed to contemplate my words, her resolve cracking like delicate porcelain. The silence swelled, the world around us fading to a blur as we breathed through the final moments of uncertainty. "Maybe," she began hesitantly, "I've hidden behind humor because I didn't know how to articulate my feelings. If I'm truly honest, I sometimes feel overwhelmed, competing to fit into a family where I've always felt like an outsider." Each confession peeled back another layer in Sophie, revealing the complexity beneath her polished surface. I smiled gently, my heart opening wider. "You're not an outsider, Sophie. You're part of this family. We want you to be part of our history, not just in jest, but in the heart of who we are." As those words landed between us, the laughter whispered quieter, replaced by understanding. The air shifted. It felt tangible, as if the very fabric of our family life was healing with each word spoken. We had taken steps toward reclaiming the essence of our connection. "Can we really do this?" she whispered, hope igniting her voice palpable in the space between us. "Yes," I replied firmly, warmth flooding my chest. "Together we can build this new foundation where insecurity is not rooted and where laughter nurtures, not cuts. I don't want to keep repeating the cycle of pain I've felt or caused," she confessed, her sincerity casting a steadying light over the path ahead. With our hearts now visible to each other, the burden of the past began to dissipate. Little by little, respect and love steadied our footing as our family summoned the future. "We can reclaim our laughter, transform it into something that binds us, an alchemy forged in trust," I concluded, both proud and relieved. As conversations mingled beneath the canopy of branches overhead, and as the golden sun veiled us in warmth, I looked at Jake and Sophie, satisfied that we had turned a corner. We were finally on the cusp of a new dawn.